We're seeing another run on gold price. I think it's one part Santa Claus rally and then one part everything is fine. So we have new data. Core personal consumption expenditures. That price index increased 0.1% for the month. Year over year, it's 3.2%. So what? Well, that's slightly better than expected, and I think we could all agree that the specific data, well, it's getting pretty boring, but what isn't boring is that core PCE is up 1.9% if we used a 6-month benchmark. And what that says is that the trend is actually showing inflation moving toward that 2% Fed goal. So what does that mean? Well, despite what we hear on YouTube, the data is actually surprisingly normal. But the interesting part here is what normal is doing to the price of gold. Before we get back to it, if you're looking for precious metals, hit up SD Bullion. New customers even get gold and silver for spot. That's sdbullion.com/new. So with inflation data pointing toward 2% and rate hikes not having a huge impact on reported employment numbers, I know, don't shoot the messenger here, but the Fed has changed gears on policy decisions, and it's really not a surprise. We've been talking about that for over a year now, but the surprise is that it happened in 2023, and it happened before we saw the price spike from the Hamas attack actually fall off. So whether you feel like the economy is fine, everything's fine, or not, the plan for rate decreases has actually been mentioned officially, and the price of gold is already on the way up. The big so what here is that none of this fineness seems to be realized outside of the reported numbers. Is any of this benefiting you? Well, it depends on who you are, what you're up to, but in terms of physical gold, well, one of the things people have been discovering lately is that there are easier ways to play market swings. Definitely easier than buying and selling physical gold. I'm going to get some pre-33 out here. I haven't done that lately. So I don't think the idea that physical gold is not meant to be traded really needed to be discovered, but the popularity of videos talking about local coin shops not buying gold at the moment, well, that shows that people are thinking about it. Now, most people buy physical gold for a list of reasons. I'll give you two. Ignoring the tax angle, of course. At the top of the list, we have third-party risk. So maybe this isn't a concern to you. For some, it's probably the primary concern. The question is whether or not you trust somebody else to secure your assets. Would you rather secure them yourself? Now, the only way to really limit third-party risk is to own physical gold, store it yourself. And then probably closer to the bottom of the list, well, you might just like to look at it. Some people get a kick out of the experience of handling gold firsthand. No real surprise there, it's gorgeous stuff. Now, this can give you the same endorphin rush that you might get from buying a fancy gizmo, a watch, a pocket knife, a bottle of bourbon. Well, the bourbon's probably a little bit different, but you understand what I'm saying. So as far as trading goes, physical gold just isn't for that. Regardless of whether you see it as collecting, physical assets, well, they do something a little bit different than trading in equity market. You can actually get more of a sense of reward. You can get a bump in your mood, a drop in stress, whatever. People are compelled to go after the shiny object. It just makes you feel better. You'll hear people call it retail therapy. Well, physical gold pulls that lever without actually wasting money because you're buying an asset that can be converted back to cash if you ever have a need. That's why I think it's a good way to save and why I'm not worried about it being a poor way to trade. Now, if you want to trade, you can buy shares of metals equities, you can buy shares in gold producers. There are a lot of ways to invest in gold if that's your goal. But the past few weeks, we've heard people saying it's hard to sell gold right now. Granted, nobody's saying it is actually trying to sell their gold, but that idea is being perpetuated. And if you're concerned by that idea, well, it's possible that you're thinking of gold as a trade, or maybe you're just off balance. Maybe you have too much physical gold, not enough other things that you could more easily liquidate if you needed the cash. Now, I'm not trying to get personal. I'm not trying to give advice there. I know people, though, who have hundreds of ounces of gold, and I'd say there's probably a point where you feel covered. You feel covered on that third-party risk because you have a reasonable backup if some kind of event made it hard to get at other assets. You probably also reach a point when a compulsion to buy more gold isn't really keeping you from wasting money. So some of those original ideas that get you into the stuff might change over time. And it's just a matter of diversification. I don't have all my liquid assets tied up in gold, so I don't really get caught up in these stories where somebody's local coin shop isn't buying at the moment. Now, again, I'm not advising anything here, but I'd say people can hold gold for different purposes. Maybe you have some physical on hand that scratches the primary itch. Maybe you have some equities to trade. When these prices spike, you can sell it with the tap of a button. Now, if you want physical, but you want to make it easier to sell, there are other ways you can do that too. You could store it at a depository. I just had a tour of the SD Bullion facility, so that idea is top of mind. They have a whole section of the facility for allocated storage, so you can buy from them, also have them store it. They would just move it from one vault to another. They hold on to it until you tell them that you either want to take delivery or you want to sell it back. And they do that for IRA custodial accounts too. Again, I'm not pushing any of this, but maybe you've heard me mention that I use a vault. I use it for storage, not as an IRA, but it's a little bit of a hassle, and if I had to do it again, I think SD Bullion would have just made that part easier. Now, the other thing that you can do is just not make things hard on yourself. Don't overdo it. Don't buy things that end up being hard to sell, and don't take YouTube videos too seriously, but also stay diversified. All things in moderation. Now, I bought a 1/4 ounce of gold every month for 9 years. I buy more than that now, but the reason that I mentioned that plan, that 9-year stretch, is that plan was easy. I was never overextended. I was only buying what was easy to sell, and I never once had to worry about whether or not I could sell it or whether somebody's local coin shop wasn't buying gold at the time. We get to decide what we worry about, what we focus on, and I'd rather focus on the savings aspect of this stuff. And the holidays. So let's call it good, dear. I hope you're enjoying the holiday season, closing down another year. And if you're making new plans, let us know in the comments. If you're excited about the price run on gold, let us know that too. And then while you're there, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.